This week, we're going to look at different models of human services, which means different ways to think about the human services. The first way to look at human services is what is sometimes called the medical model, but this is a little tricky. It does not mean it has to have anything to do with medical care, but it is based on the idea that just the way a doctor looks at a problem, human services might look at the person as there is something wrong with them, and therefore the role of the human services is to fix the person. So this is the fix the person model. Now, there are services where the medical model just makes sense to us. For instance, hospitals, like surgery to correct a problem, or the emergency room after an accident, or health clinics where a person gets antibiotics for an infection, or vaccines to prevent an illness, or a wellness check. But it isn't just physical care. People struggling with mental illness might receive therapy or psychiatric medication. But the medical model is also found in other types of social services. The idea is if the person has a problem, the service will fix the problem. Bizarrely, the corrections is one place where people feel that it's a fix-it model. The person in prison is there as a result of internal and external problems, and the prison is supposed to fix the person. Now, the public health model combines the medical and the human services model, and it focuses on groups, not individuals. And this model very much began addressing groups of people's physical health needs. And interestingly, the first place this really shows up is in the creation of a public sewer system. It's a little disgusting, but 100 plus years ago and more, cities did not always have sewer systems, and waste from what we think of as toilets or garbage could be out in the street, could be dumps, and all kinds of major public health issues and epidemics grew out of this problem. When public sewer systems were put in, the health of whole cities was improved. The same for having access to clean water or vaccinating everybody for a disease. We no longer think of polio or smallpox as problems in our country because everyone got vaccinated. The Food and Drug Administration making sure that what you buy for food or take for medicine is safe and clean is a public health issue. Managing epidemics the way we are more or less trying to right now is a public health issue. So it combines both the medical and the human service approach. And it might even ask questions like, do people have access to healthy food? Do people have access to clean, safe homes? There are individual problems, but they grow out of these group community needs. So what else can you think of that might affect people's well-being that is more than just the issue they face individually, that affects many people? And finally, there's what's known as the human services model, which is focusing on helping the person help himself or herself. And it's based on problem solving. You're not solving the problem, you're helping the individual solve the problem. And it's based on a strength-based approach, which we will discuss much more throughout this course and the curriculum, which says that people will help themselves by using their strengths. Your job as the helper is to help people identify their strengths, not what's wrong with them, but what their strengths are. So these three models of service are very similar to the three strategies described in the textbook. The medical fix-it model is very much like the direct service strategy. The public health model, fix the problem affecting many people, is very like the mixed direct service systems change strategy. And the human services model has much in common with the systems change strategy. And it's important to realize that all three are correct models depending on what you're trying to do. If there's a problem where many people are hungry, you certainly can want to change what's causing people to be hungry. You certainly want to make food available for many people. But for starters, if an individual is starving, you have to feed the person. So all three are necessary and appropriate at different times and for different situations. So let's talk a little bit now about problem solving, because that is a critical piece you will be doing to help people solve their own problems. So problem solving focuses on the present issue. It's not about going into a lot of the past. It helps the person to identify the problem, which bizarrely is much more complicated than it sounds like. Sometimes the problem is real clear. Often what we're seeing is not the full problem, and helping people find what's really their issue, what is really the problem for them, is the beginning of solving it. Again, it's all about helping the person identifying the strengths they have to solve the problem. Helping the person look at their choices and make their own decisions. Then creating a plan to work on their own problem and implementing the plan. And most important, perhaps, to evaluate if the plan is working. Lots of great plans don't actually work, so got to go back and figure out why it didn't and try again. And it looks at the whole person, not just the immediate problem, but everything that makes up the person. People are more than just the problem. And helping bring for this person many different resources to work together to help solve the problems. So let's say a child is brought to an emergency room with an asthma attack. Very frightening, very serious. So the medical model response is to provide an inhaler, which absolutely makes sense. The public health model's response is to look at the building the child lives in and clean up the dust and the allergens in the building. Also makes sense. And the human services model response is to advocate and require that there are health assessments and building cleanups throughout the entire community. Also makes a lot of sense. So if a person is struggling with addiction, the medical model's response would be to put the person in a drug treatment program. Correct. The public health model's response might be to develop a drug awareness program. And the human services model's response might develop community programs for youth so they have an alternative to the streets. They're all good responses and necessary responses. If a woman leaving an abusive relationship is at a shelter, the medical model's response might be to provide counseling. The public health model's response might be to start a violence prevention program for abusers. And the human services model response might be programs that help men and women move out of poverty or programs to empower women. Again, they're all good responses. So I'm asking you to now take some time and watch this video, and then think about how the video discusses the different models of helping. Then when you're done with that, there's another video to watch, and I'm asking you to please watch this video. And I love the phrase, look at what's strong, not at what's wrong. If you can only do one thing, write this on a Post-it and always have it with you on the job. And then think about what were some of the strengths that this video discussed.